My disability was that I was born with strabismus in my left eye. I'm blind in my left eye. And as a result, I have a lazy and a wandering eye. And up until that moment with her, I didn't know that there was anything different about me. I didn't know that I was different from any of the other kids. And now I was being told, not only are you different, but we want you to go tell everyone about it. It was mortifying. And as a 6-year-old, you can imagine what that does. From that moment on, my entire life became this war between these two extremes. On one hand, I wanted desperately for people to be able to look past my disability and see who I really was. And on the other hand, I was constantly in a fight within myself to do whatever I could to hide my disability, to cover it up, to make sure that people didn't notice. And this gap between wanting to be seen for who you really are, and at the same time, being afraid that if people saw who you really are, they wouldn't like what they see, isn't just me. It's not just people who have disabilities. This is universal. And it's shown up again and again in my life and in my work. And I've come to call this the visibility paradox. It's something we all struggle with. We all have our eye, whether it's the extra pounds that you put on that you're afraid your partner's going to notice, so you start wearing clothes that are a little looser. Your thighs, you don't like them, thigh gap, ooh, right? We all have that thing that we don't want people to see. So what do? We start to put on masks for the outside world because we feel like if we can construct a persona that people like, then they'll like us. And what happens is by doing that, we all have our masks. You're actually making the outside world fall in love with a lie. Because the mask that you put on isn't who you really are. So I want to talk today a little bit about how do you get beyond this? How do you get beyond persona? How do you get beyond these things that you're so scared the outside world will see about you so that you can live an authentic life, have authentic connections, and achieve real success in your life and your creative work. So that's what I want to talk to you about. So what I did with strabismus, and I'm actually going to just move this up here. It's easy, so I don't have to keep going back and forth. I tried to control it. My strategy through most of my young adult life, junior high, high school, when I realized that there was this thing that I couldn't do anything about that shaped people's perception of me, my strategy was to seize control. If it was going to be there no matter what, I was going to grab it by the neck and beat it into submission, whatever way I could. And what that looked like is, if we're walking beside each other, I would make you stand on my right side. Or if we're at a restaurant, I'm going to angle myself this way, thinking that if I can do my part to disguise it, that you'll see past my eye and that we can have a real connection. What's the flaw in that? By trying to take control of my disability, it took control of me. Whereas before, I wasn't thinking about it at all. I was just a kid. I was normal. I'd go play. I had friendships. Now, every day, all day, I was constantly aware. Are they looking at my eye? Is someone going to look at me and look slightly to the left because this eye has wandered and they don't know if I'm looking back at them? It took control of my life because I tried to take control of it, because I tried to shape how people saw me. And I guarantee that the things that you're doing in your life, in your work, to hide your flaws, are doing the exact same thing. They're not serving you, these affectations, these masks that you're putting on. They're actually a barrier to connection, to healthy relationships, to innovation, to success and creativity. They're a barrier to all the things you want. And yet you think that they are protecting you and keeping you strong. Could be weight, age, scars, wounds, all the things that we try to hide from each other. What my experience has taught me is that people always see exactly who you are. Everyone you ever meet, there's nothing extra that you have to do. There's no extra steps that you have to take. When you lean into trusting that everyone around you always sees exactly who you are, they always see the real you, you can kind of let go of all these things that you've been putting on. So, for creatives, I have bad news. This visibility paradox takes on a whole new level. It becomes a shitstorm when you're a creative person. Because now not only are you in your life and your relationships trying to manage how people see you and struggling with that gap, wanting to be seen, terrified of what people will think when they see the real you. Now that extends to your work as a creative person. You're not just dealing with yourself and your relationships, you're dealing with the relationship of your creative work to the entire world. And I see this in my work as a business mentor for creatives all the time. People are so terrified of putting their work out there and putting themselves out there because of what people might think. And yet, having your work seen and appreciated is the thing you want most, right? That's why we're creatives. We want to use ourselves to create an expression that the world can see and appreciate. It's a dichotomy. It's the thing you want most, and it becomes your biggest obstacle. And I hear so many stories. Day to day, I work with a lot of creatives. People who the success of their business, of their creative endeavors, depends on their ability to put themselves out there, to be visible on social media, especially in this case, and to the world. And I hear stories when you dig deep and you say, what's really going on? What's the real fear? When people are having trouble expressing themselves, having trouble putting their work out there, you hear the craziest stories. You hear, well, my ex-boyfriend's on Facebook, and if he sees that I'm doing this work now, he's going to comment on it, and he's going to trash me publicly, and everyone's going to see it, and I'm going to be made a fool of. You see that, well, I'm not as qualified as this person over there, and they have a bigger following. So if I put my work out there, if I put myself out there, eventually someone somewhere is going to see that I'm a fraud. And they're going to call me out, and my career will be destroyed. So we play small. We keep ourselves in a little box. We put ourselves out there just enough to get a little of what we want, but we don't go farther. It all comes down to this fear that if we're seen, truly seen, people will figure out that we're a fraud, that we're not good enough, smart enough, pretty enough, thin enough, not enough. That's the fear that's holding you back from achieving the truest, highest expression of yourself as a creative person. So what do? How do you manage this gap? How do you manage the visibility paradox, wanting to be seen for who you really are, wanting your work to be seen, and yet we're scared. If people see us, they won't like what they see. How do you dive in? I've got a couple of measuring sticks, a couple of things that you can use to assess where you are and how you can lean into that discomfort and dive into that space in the visibility paradox, because you're never going to defeat it. If my life and my work has told me anything, it's never going to go away. It's always going to be there. It's how you deal with it, how you dance with it. If you can't defeat it, you have to dance with it. So how do you do that? I've got a couple of suggestions of places that you might be able to start. There's three things that you can lean on when things start to get uncomfortable. And they are alignment, authenticity, and service. And I'm going to tell you about each three. Alignment is how close is this work that I'm doing to what I really want to do. Your alignment is how close or far you are from the work that's really asking to be expressed for you. When you get off your path and start doing the work that's expected of you, or what you think you should be doing for an audience, or what you think will be commercially successful, you stray too far. And you're not going to be able to manage the visibility paradox because you know deep down inside that this isn't what you really want to be doing. So alignment is number one. Is this my work? Ask yourself that question. Is what I'm doing what I want to be doing? Is this the work that I want to express? And if not, recalibrate. You're not going to be able to stand in front of the world and put yourself out there and put your message out there if you know deep down that this isn't something that's true to you, right? It's going to get in the way. So alignment is number one. Authenticity, number two. Am I being myself? Am I wearing a mask right now? Am I trying to hide something? Am I trying to impress someone? Am I trying to show up as anything other than who and what I really am? When you lean into authenticity, which is vulnerable, right? It's scary. We don't want to. But what I need you to realize is that when you lean into authenticity, when you lean into that vulnerability, that's where all the good stuff is. That's where your work gets better. Your relationships get better. Your career takes a different path. So, am I being true to myself? Is this who I really am? Or am I putting on a mask right now? Ask yourself that in your work, in your life, in your relationships, and lean in to vulnerability. Lean in to being more of yourself and watch those areas of your life change. Number two. Number three is service. How can you use the gifts that you've been given, your creativity, your talent, your spark? How can you use this to be of service to other people? What do you have that other people need? How can you use the God-given gifts that you were born with to change the world, to change your community, to change your city? When you lead from a place of service, when you ask that your talent and your gifts be used in service to other people, your mission becomes bigger than yourself, and it becomes bigger than your ego. And that mission will drive you in ways that just existing for yourself can't. When you're just in it for yourself, when you're just in it for success, you'll have a certain level of motivation. But when you're in it because you have a larger mission, because you have a desire to be of service to other people, that desire and that goal will drive you further and higher than you ever thought possible. So how can you be of service? How can you use what you have to help the people in your community, the people in your city, the people in the world? What do you have? Are you a painter? Can you use your work to express something that needs to be said? Are you a graphic designer? Doesn't mean that you have to forego a traditional job. We all have to make money. But when we're talking about creativity and pure creative expression, how can you go beyond that? How can you use what you were given to help someone, to inspire someone, to shed light on something that's important to you? How can you be of service? When these three things are operating in unison, when you are in alignment, when you're doing the work that you know you want to do, regardless of whether or not you think it's going to be successful, when you're doing the work that you want to do, and when you're showing up as who and what you are, nothing more, and when you're using yourself to be of service to other people, your life takes off. This is the common denominator in the lives of so many people that I've seen. I have a really incredible series of experiences that I've been able to have, from starting my own business at the age of 22 to working in the film and television industry alongside people like Al Pacino, Viola Davis, Oprah Winfrey. And in every case, when I encountered someone who had made a success of their lives, who was doing something extraordinary, these three things were always at play. They were always trying to do more of themselves. They always knew that they were doing exactly what they were meant to be doing, and they always had a vision to be of service, to make their work bigger than just their ego. When you get those three things and you master them, being visible and putting yourself out there, being seen and seeing others, becomes the whole world easier. So that's what I want you to do. This then is where your real creative work is meant to be found. It's in leaning into the visibility paradox, in daring to be seen, and daring to really be still and see other people. Do this and watch your work change. When I did this, one of the things I did just a couple of years ago, I started getting online as I was founding my online business, and live video, as we know, is the new platform for the online world. Video is something like 80% of all content. Me with Strabismus was terrified to be on video. Like, this is horrifying. I can't tell if both eyes are looking at you when you're in person. How am I going to control it on a camera, right? So I started just forcing myself to do it. I'd get on camera and share my message with my audience online. And then I decided to take a step further. I decided to do the thing that scared me the most. I took a selfie and I let my eye wander wherever, as far as it wanted to. I just waited, I snapped a picture. I posted that picture on Instagram. That picture has since been shared by Kylie Jenner and Ashton Kutcher. It's part of a campaign called I Am More Than, and it has, I think, 500,000 likes and over 300,000 comments last time I looked. All because I dared to dive into that visibility paradox and just lean into the fear. So that's what I want you to do. Do that thing, this thing that you're so scared that other people are going to see about you. Don't hide with it. Lead with it. That thing, in that thing, whatever it is, within it lies the message that you were meant to share. That's where you can lean into authenticity, alignment, and service, and really help change the world around you. So the world is waiting for you to share your story, to share your gifts, to show up as who you really are. The only question now is, will you answer the call? Thank you.